A thick steak left on your counter barely warms up before it ever hits the fire. That idea, the famous room temperature rule, is mistake number 6 on this list, and it's mostly a myth. 6 things are quietly wrecking your steak right now, and not one of them is your grill. I went digging through the tested food science, the measured kind, not the backyard kind. And one pattern kept repeating. The grill, the part you obsess over, is usually the part you already nail. Your steak gets lost before the flame, or in the 5 seconds after it leaves it. 3 of these 6 mistakes do more damage than the other 3 combined, and the very worst one happens with a knife. So, mistake number 6, that room temperature rule. You've heard it forever. Pull the steak out an hour early, let it warm up, cook it evenly. I believed it for years, but a food scientist named Kenji Lopez Alt actually put a probe in one and measured. He left a thick steak on the counter and watched the center. After 20 minutes, almost nothing moved. After an hour, it crept up a few degrees. After nearly 2 hours, the middle was still cold, nowhere close to room temperature. Meat is a terrible conductor. The outside warms up, but the inside just sits there. So that hour on the counter isn't tempering anything real. And the food safety folks will tell you a steak left in the warm zone that long is a gamble for no reward. But here's what that hour on the counter actually does, and it's the part almost nobody mentions. It dries the surface. And a dry surface is the entire secret to a hard brown crust. So the old rule accidentally helps, for the exact opposite reason everyone believes. Remember that word, surface, because it comes right back. Which lands us on mistake number 5, and it's about salt, but not how much salt. It's when you add it. Salt pulls moisture up out of the meat, so if you sprinkle it on and wait 10 minutes, you've got a wet, beaded surface at the worst possible moment. All that water has to boil off before the meat can brown. So you end up steaming your steak instead of searing it. But wait longer, 40 minutes or more, and the whole thing flips. That drawn-out moisture dissolves the salt, becomes a thin brine, and soaks back in. The salt seasons deep, the surface dries out again, and the proteins hold on to water better over the fire. So there are really only 2 safe times to salt. The last minute before it hits the grate, or at least 40 minutes ahead. And honestly, the night before, uncovered in the fridge, is best. The dead zone in the middle is where good steaks go to steam. Figure about half a teaspoon of coarse kosher salt per pound. Use a little more if your salt is the light, flaky kind, since it weighs less spoon for spoon. And if you want to watch it work, do the overnight version. The surface goes tacky at first, then dries into a dark, matte skin by morning. That dry skin is a crust waiting to happen. And notice what just happened. Mistake 6 and mistake 5 are the same mistake wearing 2 hats. Both of them are just water sitting where you wanted a crust. The surface, again, mistake number 4 starts at the store, before you cook a single thing. You're buying the wrong thickness. A thin steak, say 3/4 of an inch, is a trap. By the time the outside browns, the inside is already gray and overdone. There's no window. You simply cannot build a real crust and keep a pink center on a thin steak. The physics won't let you. You want at least 1.5 inches, and closer to 2 inches is better. Go thicker, your call, but thickness buys you time. The crust forms while the middle stays exactly where you want it. And I personally think this matters more than the grade on the sticker. A thick choice steak beats a thin prime steak in your backyard every time. Thickness is the part you can actually control on the fire. Grade is mostly what they charge you for. So step back and look at the pattern. Surface moisture, salt timing, thickness, 3 mistakes deep, and not one of them has touched the grill yet. Mistake number 3, you're guessing when it's done. The poke test, the finger to the palm trick, or cutting in to peek. The poke test is wildly unreliable. Every steak has a different thickness and fat load, so the same squish means totally different things. A cheap instant read thermometer just ends the argument. Pull a medium rare steak around 125 degrees. It keeps cooking after it comes off, another 5 or so from carryover. And stop cutting into it to check. Every peak dumps juice onto the board, and the color fools you anyway under grill light. And yes, the resting debate is real, so here's the honest version. Resting lets a little less juice spill when you cut. The effect is smaller than people claim, but carryover is the part that truly matters. Pull it early, then let it climb. And if you're wondering why I chase the stuff nobody tells you, it's the same reason I built the Grill Buyer's Black Book. The aisle runs on these same myths. Mistake number 2 is a belief, and it's been handed down like scripture. Searing seals in the juices. It doesn't. A food writer named Harold McGee put this myth to bed decades ago, and his book is the one real scientists still cite. A seared steak loses just as much moisture, sometimes a hair more. Searing does something wonderful, but sealing was never it. What searing actually gives you is the crust, that deep browned roasted flavor from the Maillard reaction. So sear for flavor, not for a seal that never existed. And while we're at it, the flip only once rule is folklore too. Flipping every 30 seconds actually cooks more evenly and browns just fine. And yes, I just torched 2 things your dad swore by. So let me make it up to him with number 1, because it's the one he'd agree with. Mistake number 1 is the one that stings, because you can nail everything else and still wreck it in the final 5 seconds. You slice it the wrong way. Look at a cooked steak and you'll see lines running in one direction. Those are muscle fibers, long, tough bundles of them. When you cut along those lines with the grain, you leave the fibers full length, and your teeth are stuck doing all the tearing. It chews tough no matter how perfectly you cooked it. Cut across them instead, against the grain, and you chop those long fibers into short little segments. The knife does the work your teeth were about to do. The very same steak goes from chewy to tender, and nothing else changed. Finding the grain is easy. Look for the lines running across the surface, then set your knife so it cuts straight across them. On a big strip or ribeye, the grain can even shift direction halfway down, so check again as you go. It's most dramatic on the loose-grained cuts, flank, skirt, flat iron, brisket, but it helps on nearly everything you grill. So after all that care, the salt, the surface, the thickness, the fire, don't hand it back with one lazy cut. And that is the whole point. None of this was ever about buying a fancier grill. The grill was never really your problem. 6 mistakes, and every single one lives in your hands, your timing, your knife, which means every single one is free to fix. Salt early or salt last. Buy it thick. Dry the surface. Trust a thermometer. Sear for flavor. Cut against the grain. That's the entire distance between a steak you quietly apologize for and one that makes the table go silent. The fire gets all the credit and all the blame. But a great steak is really decided before it ever heats up and in the 5 seconds after it comes off. Get those 2 bookends right, and the middle takes care of itself. One honest thing. Nobody sponsors this channel, so I can say who's actually lying. That's the brand report card in the Black Book. One bad grill costs thousands. This costs $20. No pressure, you got today's fixes free. Links in the description, and I still run a rusty old kettle myself. Do these things once, side by side against your old habits, and you will not argue about it again. YouTube thinks you'll like the video on your screen right now, so click it. And if you made it all the way to the end here, subscribe,